let's go ahead and get going.
All right.
So today's April 19th. It's lab report day, as usual. So Riley, you said you got to go early?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody? That's cool. Yeah. Anybody else need to go on the early side?
Normal for me.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. We'll put Riley up first. Cool. On keyboard. Happen all day. You up? Sweet. That is super short. I can drive the truck. Cool. Thank you. Everybody's got the screen?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Kind of threw this together. I thought it was real plain green background, so I put in this nice springtime river image here. Very nice. So, on keyboard again. Okay, great. So last night we, Josh, Hudson, and I, and Dr. Tingle went over to CNRE launch party. We've the whole group here created an Esri app, which live streamed locations of alumni as like alumni career destinations. So where alumni are going to go when they leave Virginia Tech. So we kind of walked around and surveyed people, and they dropped points on a tablet, and as they dropped the point, it showed up on the TV. You know, people seemed to really get a kick out of it. We've been invited to go to the university-wide graduate bash after commencement, I believe, on May 15th. So it seemed like people were excited about it. So, you know, good press for our geography department and our lab for sure. And, yeah. The undergraduate advisor here in the department also made a suggestion that maybe we have sort of a data entry station at spring commencement to gather more of that data. So, on the right, you can see this ceremonial tree planting they had here, where each department put in an item of significance, right? So one of our geography students ripped up a map and threw it in there. Fisheries and wildlife actually put in a big old fish. Kind of interesting.
A whole fish?
A whole fish.
Wow.
Maybe it'll fertilize. Who knows? Anyway, so yeah, this was the map that ended up being generated. So, you know, there were about 65 people there, according to the event planner. And it wasn't all the orange red dots you see are the data points that were entered last night. And so one thought I had was maybe we could make those orange dots smaller. You might be able to see more of them.
Oh, were there lots that kind of ended up on top of one another?
I think so. So like, you know, if 20 people put Roanoke, Virginia, it's probably going to show up as one dot, right? Right. And so I don't know if there's a way to get around that. If, you know, that'll probably be where the heat map type thing would come in, right?
Yeah, you'd have to be kind of aggregating those points on the background in some way. Yeah, it'd be an interesting project. We should see about that.
Yeah.
Probably write a geoprocessing tool. Geoprocessing service that does it.
Just kind of running in the background.
Well, you would probably have to run it each time, but it would pull from that data layer, so you can just have that data layer, you know, automatic input from it. Just like run it to
We should talk to who's the guy, Seth Cooey.
You might have some interesting ideas for how to automate that.
What?
Automate what?
We were saying the map, if there was a way to kind of make like a live.
If the points go one on top of each other, we aggregate those and make like the point bigger.
A live like cluster thing.
Yeah.
If it gets on top.
Something to think about, but I think it went really well, and it probably would do just as fine if we did this again.
Yeah.
So this week it's been kind of crazy. I went to a funeral in DC at the beginning of the week and had some serious car trouble on the way back. So I cut into my work time this week, but making up for it now. I did get to experience a firmware update on the Mavic Pro with Dr. Tingle here.
Always fun, right?
He's hoping that'll solve the geotag wander issue that we were having.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that when mine goes on.
So I'm trying to get all the schoolwork out of the way and focus on my research and continue developing my proposal into something substantive. And yeah, that's about it for me.
All right. Cool. Sweet, Riley.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You gotta do closing or?
I gotta take care of it.
What time is closing?
12:15.
Is it in 136 or? Okay.
You guys are.
See ya.
All right. Let's real quick. All right. So, is the screen still sharing?
Yep.
I'll go pretty quick. So we already talked about this. It turned out really nicely. The other part that Riley didn't talk about, first of all, it was a team effort. So everybody kind of took a link in the chain. So it was really nice. Appreciate everybody's help on that. Turned out great. I went to an environmental security forum earlier this week. It was a day and a half kind of long affair in DC at the Virginia Tech campus there. There were about 50 people in kind of industry and government. A lot of conversations. Not sure exactly what's going to come out of it. Maybe trying to get something going with major or a center. I think that's really up in the air at this point of what's going to happen. But it was interesting to get people talking about sort of international implications of environmental problems, which was actually something I did a lot of as an undergrad. It would be kind of fun to get back into that. Just to advertise, there's a Yellowscan Trimble eCognition webinar coming up. So this is the same drone that we used in the lab for the last couple of years. The Velodyne HDL32E is mounted. What they do is they basically wrap some hardware around it to help build the maps in real time. Sort of like what's that stuff that we use? Carta?
Yeah. Slam.
So, yeah, it's basically a hardware-based SLAM algorithm. A lot of that stuff's coded and it happens automatically, and then you just, pull the stuff from a thumb drive at the end.
So the eCognition is
eCognition is Trimble software to do, I think, mostly classification of the stuff.
and Yellowscan is the actual SLAM.
Yellowscan is the SLAM. Yeah, it's the hardware that wraps around the Velodyne. So integrated stack of stuff. So that's going to be Tuesday, I think 10, kind of hiding behind the people, but 10 a.m. I think Eastern. I'm happy to host it here. I posted the link. I think anybody can join in. So if you're interested, should be a neat little hour-long seminar. Last Friday in the afternoon, I got a chance to talk to Colleen Doney. She's a senior geography researcher at the AAG studying. We got in contact via like the teaching programming in GIS session that I did at AAG. She's got a grant working on studying this, so it was an interesting contact. Hopefully, kind of more comes out of that.
She's based out of, where is she based out of?
DC, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, she works for the AAG in their offices. So yeah, it's hopefully we can get Virginia Tech involved in that. The Tech geography programming curriculum is fairly unique. So it's rare to require Python in a CS department. And so that puts us in an interesting spot to sort of gather data and offer our experiences. Pretty unique stuff. I spent the weekend working on the AR Sandbox draft. So Earl and Rob have worked on pieces of this kind of throughout the years. So when they ran the pilot study at NIU, that was part of a big multi-institution study. So that manuscript is getting pretty close to getting out. It's being submitted to the Journal of Geography and Higher Education. It was kind of a late choice. It was going to get submitted to the Journal of Geoscience Ed. Almost all of the people that are working on this project, other than me, are geologists. So you can actually see the list: geology, and then there's me. So the paper needed some retooling to fit in a geography journal. I did that retooling. The new firmware for the DJI Mavic is out. Riley and I updated it yesterday. So this fixes. It was interesting. I saw this Facebook post was how I got alerted to it. I'm in the Pix40 group on Facebook. which is a great way to sort of keep up on this stuff. Stuff drifts by your feed and you hear about it a lot faster. This kind of thing where the geotagging is wrong, either in selected pieces, which happened to me, or just the whole thing being shifted by a kilometer happened to me.
Is that what we were talking about with the VT drone?
Yeah. So it's good to keep hearing that it's not just us, and that it's not. And supposedly the new software or the new firmware fixes that, but I haven't tested it yet. It's updated, but we haven't tested it. There's also, while I was looking at that, somebody in this thread had mentioned this software that they had put out here, which is EXIF extractor. So when the geotags get put in there, they get attached to this header information on the image file called an EXIF data. So this is a nice way of sort of interacting with that stuff that supposedly is set up nicely for geotagging, so that could come in handy. So it's kind of just a mental note. I stumbled across this. So one of the things when we flew it a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of agonizing a little bit over how well we were going to be able to see the drone. The place where we launched from, there's kind of 4 buildings that surround the launch point, and I wasn't sure exactly. We were going to fly it close to 400 feet. I thought we'd be well above the sight line, but as the drone gets further away, then it can get occluded by even a moderately sized building, which is what these were. As it turned out, it was totally easy to see, and we didn't have any problems viewing it from where we were. But I've been interested for the last couple of months. I think I've mentioned this at a couple of lab meetings, just figuring out a better way to figure that out ahead of time so that you're not just guessing. So I was playing around with Google Earth, and Google Earth has a couple of features. So what kind of turned me on to it was I just opened Google Earth, and the building models, I'll show this here in a second, the building models in Google Earth are way better than I remember. And I'll show you, there've been some great improvements on that in the last So I was like, well, maybe we can just use this to do the job. So I looked at using cameras to do that. So this is an example of a camera tag, camera set of tags. Basically can put in your latitude and longitude, put in your altitude, which I'm just defining as 1.8 meters, kind of general, tallish human height. The tilt, so that's, a little bit above 90 degrees off the ground. And then the altitude node is relative to ground, so the 1.8 meters is 1.8 meters above whatever Google Earth thinks the ground level is. And then I made a polygon file just for you can either use it as an exported flight path, so if you plan it in whatever your flight planning software is, you can just export that as a KML and you could drag that in. I didn't have that, so I just drew one in Google Earth, which is also fine. This is what it looks like. So this is, again, just the polygon border. But as you kind of pan around, it's pretty easy to see what those flight lines are going to be. You'll see it jump, though, which is interesting. But you can totally see that it's not going to be a problem. That's all I have on that one. So I think the system works pretty well. I mean, you can just manually put one of these together in just a couple minutes. So it would definitely give me a lot of peace of mind. And I think that's probably something worth sharing with the other people flying in and around campus, just to let them know how this is done and how easy it could be. I was also thinking this might be a cool thing to implement using some of the Google APIs and just make a web page for it, so that you can just draw a polygon and have a Google Earth, and the whole thing could be pretty seamless. So I might look into that this week. The other thing that I saw was Google Earth Studio. So while I was trying to figure out how to do this animation, I ended up just using a screen capture to do it, but I had rendered this. But there's a new Google Earth Studio. Have you guys seen this?
No.
Yeah. It's a website basically for making animations out of Google Earth. It's got a ton of cool features. You have to sort of apply to get it, but that got approved within a couple of hours. So I think it's not immediate, but it's fast. And this is what it looks like. So this is one little fly through of the Virginia Tech campus. Yeah. Sorry, it's a little bit fast. I was kind of in a rush to do this, but you can can see the potential, right? And it only takes, you know, a minute to put this together. It actually does the rendering in the browser. This is a little bit strange. It does the rendering in a browser, and you can download a zip file with all of the JPEGs, and then you've got to assemble those JPEGs into a movie. So I don't know, I expect that'll probably change at some point, but I just used FFmpeg. I think they recommended some Adobe stuff or whatever. I don't think it matters what you use, but it was interesting that you don't get an actual movie out of it. You get the JPEG frames. When you start a new project, it's not the greatest interface in the world. I'll say that. It's okay. You can define the dimensions, the size of the movie. You define the duration at the beginning, which is a little bit weird. Like, I think that's a thing you kind of define as you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then you define the frame rate. And then basically you're sort of setting in these keyframes, you know, basically cameras and positions, and it just interpolates between those two. The thing that I liked, though, is that it had, so you have totally free-form ability to generate whatever you want, but it has these sort of blank projects that you can use to get started. So I had just used like the fly to in orbit, so it kind of comes down and then spins around. And you basically just put in where you want to go, and it figures out the key points for that stuff. So zoom, 2-point, orbit, spiral, all that stuff, pretty cool. Yeah, and really easy to use. So if you've got spare half hour, it's probably time well spent.
And I think you can load in your own camera layers and everything. So you can,
In this one, I'm trying to remember. I think so. Yeah,
that would be awesome because then you can go like extruded polygons or anything over it.
I think so. Yeah.
What was the size of that output that you had? Do you remember?
So like file size?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. Not huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just individual JPEG frames.
Pre-rendered and all that, yeah.
Yeah, I can show you after. Okay, and then that led me to Google Earth VR, which I want to demo for anybody that's left before Colloquium. The Oculus, have you used this, Earl?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This thing is amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so cool.
So I jumped in and looked at the Virginia Tech campus. It's a little bit weird kind of getting used to flying around in it, but I was thinking for, first of all, I think we should make connections with anybody that's doing field trips in the department, like letting students experience where they're going before they get there. I think there are like studies that show that it makes a big difference for how quickly they acclimate. And
I went to a study last year at AAG where it was exactly VR for field trips.
Yeah.
Where they can see like that kind of stuff and have a field trip without go anywhere.
Yeah.
Koreans are doing stuff like, she wrote a paper or something about that.
Oh, really?
Not exactly this, but I think it was like field work, virtual field work or something.
Oh, cool.
I wanna
The
talk
guy
to her.
at Penn State.
Yeah, I'll talk to her. That's,
I think it was like a big collaboration between different people. But yeah, the guy that talked at AAG was from Penn State.
okay. Cool. Yeah, that's, this was actually a piece that I had mentioned in the AR Sandbox sort of uses of augmented reality and virtual reality in geography. I knew that field trip stuff was a big one, but I didn't know Green did it. So yeah, I'll talk to her.
I don't know too much about it, but.
Okay. Yeah, it's something we should get people exposed to, especially now that the technology is so good. Like, it's really good.
Exponential too. It's just
My experience in virtual reality now versus 3 years ago.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
So much better. Night and day. So goals for next week. Last week I didn't really have any specified goals. I knew I was going to be traveling. I wasn't sure how much I could get done, so I kind of left that off. This week I've been, one of my little tricks has been trying to get a Python workflow for geotagging images. I don't really want to have to use something in a Jupyter notebook I could use whenever I need it. So I'm going to work on sort of coming up with a Jupyter notebook for that. And then working on the website is kind of a big priority. I'd love to get that done and wrapped up. I made some changes. Earl, you've got a profile that's up there now, so you can look at that.
Oh, no.
You have like profiles with like links to GitHubs and like all that collaborative.
That's what I want to do. Yeah. And so everybody, will have a picture, a little bio, and hopefully that stuff is good for. Oh, we lost Rob. Hopefully that stuff is good for getting a job, and when your firm that's interviewing you Googles you, that's the kind of thing that you want to come up to the top of the page.
Not old pictures that are embarrassing.
Right. So hopefully that's a good thing for everybody. All right, that's it for me. Earl, do you mind if we keep things rolling over here? I know it's better
Yeah.
for you before you have to.
I have like maybe 10 minutes at most, so go ahead. I always say that though.
All right, Molly, what can we run you next?
Yeah.
This enable editing thing.
Oh, my.
Get rid of that.
So I know last week I briefly talked about how we are currently working on defining the air sheds from surface mining sites. And I just wanted to show a few images of what the output looks like. So we're running the output in HighSplit, and right now we're trying to find, we're running a frequency analysis to determine how many, I don't even know what it's called, trajectories, like when trajectories go through a certain area in a month. So this model is run for every 6 hours from June 1st to June 30th in 2003. So the 25 max is how much air is going through that area. So theoretically, this should show the 25, 50, 75 threshold of that turning through. And then if you zoom in, it actually allows you to export it to ArcGIS Pro. So zoomed in here, you see that from third, you have 75% of the air in that little diamond, and then 50 and 25. So that's how far the air travels in a month in June 2003 in Blacksburg. So moving forward, we're going to do this for several surface mining sites.
Can you explain that one more time? I'm not sure I totally understood that.
Yeah, so little diamond is 75% of all trajectories go through that area.
Okay.
And then as you
In a month.
yeah, in a month.
Okay.
And as you expand out, or every 6 hours in a month. And as you expand out, there will be less trajectories that go through each area. But
Okay. So it's kind of like an uncertainty kind of a thing, or do you think of it as like a diffusion kind of a thing? Like.
I'm not exactly sure. She briefly explained it. I think she just wanted me to create the output for it. But when I go meet with her on later this week, I think we're going to talk about like specifically how we're defining this way. But right now, she just wants to visually see it before she makes any decisions.
Okay.
So yeah, these are the different surface mining sites that we have. So there are 2 in West Virginia, and then I think that's 1 in Virginia. Or just seeing what it looks like. This is from the first site.
So those kind of represent like the probability of air, like reaching into Pittsburgh or.
My understanding is not air, it's percentage of traffic to that area, I think. Which makes sense, because if you start at a certain point, there's going to be more airflow in this area, and kind of like.
Okay. Like 75% of the air is in that
Yeah.
inner bounding, 5% roughly out to Pittsburgh. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. On top of that, we'll define the airshed to see, I guess the overall idea is to see if the surface mining site has on people who were born in that area, like in particulate matter impacting any kind of birth defects that would occur in that.
So this idea of an airshed is interesting, because like a watershed tends to be pretty deterministic, driven by terrain, but airsheds have to totally not be.
Yeah.
So what do they, how do they work, how do they think about that?
I think she's thinking about just in terms of if we're looking at births in 2003, what was the air doing at that time? And then based off of what the air was doing at that time, we can say in this month, this surface mining site exerted this amount of influence on births in this area.
Okay.
Yeah. Like jet stream carry stuff. Like I don't know how any of that kind of thing would work. Like
So,
aerodynamic.
I think she's going to be getting in there. I think the model does.
so the points that, in this case, like the points really drive every point has its own airshed in a sense, right? Like,
Almost,
yeah.
I'm not sure if they're going to aggregate it anywhere, but they plan on doing that. And I'm sure I'll think about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. I never heard of an airshed until they're doing some.
Like, is that like reaching for like a valley or like what drives that kind of figure? I don't know. Because like you said, terrain with watersheds, like you can see all that outcroppings of smaller streams and estuaries. Like,
I'm sure mountain river is that way, but I'm sure there's so many different variables that
yeah.
I think for Horizons it's just easier to model for that specific time
Mm-hmm.
by running it through high slope, so we don't actually have to make a model of all of it. We need experts.
The resolution of the output is interesting. That's a sharp
Yeah,
bend.
it's not that fine.
Not that fun. But then this is that little nub is in there. That's weird. Huh.
I suppose you could use it with that.
Yeah. And that's it?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, that was fun to see.
Oh, sorry, was it?
Oh, okay. All right. Me, Hudson, I'd like to see if you can wait to see Rob comes back online, because you guys have the most in common, and you guys on the line. Earl, you want to go next?
Yeah, let me share from over here.
I've got to put my contact in backwards, so it's really hard to me. I'm gonna go fix it and then I'll
Okay.
do that.
See if you mentioned anything about having to step out or something. Slack, but
All right, you seen anything?
Yep, we got you.
Okay.
I'm gonna message Rob real quick and see.
All right, here's my report for today. Keywords, article prep, teaching, conference, flights, and ICE-SAT 2. Slide, I moved the slide. My goals for last week were, finish my graduation, getting a job, personal research, and some journal prep.
where are you looking to get a job at? What kind of places are you applying?
Well, right now I'm sort of in limbo because I'm waiting to find out if my daughter got accepted into a school. So if she did get accepted, we have to stay in the area. If she didn't, then we're free to move anywhere I want to. So I've just been sort of cherry picking lately around here for possibilities. So it's kind of a limbo issue right now.
Gotcha.
She should find out in about 3 weeks whether or not she got in. So then I can really start buckling down on where I want to be. So, yeah.
What position or title would you want? Like analyst or, I don't know.
Well, I'd love to go get like geospatial analyst job, but like Dr. Pino can tell you, those things take a long time to get clearances and stuff like that. So in the meantime, I'm probably looking for just maybe a year or two job, something to tide me over until I can either get accepted or denied and start clearance processes and things of that nature. So that's where I'm at right now with that. Okay, so my big thing I was working on this week was prepping my article. Well,
Where's that image from?
Huh?
What is that image from?
The Naked Lunch.
Naked Lunch. I've never heard of that.
It's a William S. Burroughs novel, but they made a movie of it back in like the late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, interesting.
So, and like the typewriters are represented by these bugs. So
I'm intrigued. Go on.
definitely something to look up then. So basically, I was going through like all my articles that I had used and referenced and looking at most of the magazines that were published in them. And the two I found that would probably be the most likely ones for me to use are the Arboriculture, or maybe it should be just Arboriculture and Urban Forestry. And the second one is Urban Forestry and Urban Greening. So I went through and I've been reformatting my article for the first one, the Arboriculture and Urban Forestry one. And I have to say, trying to reformat it back into article standpoint is almost, but not quite as annoying as actually formatting the thesis.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of things being dropped and added and moved around. Like they want your images and your figures in a, not in the article itself, but as table or as pages after the article, so they can insert as will, I guess. I don't know, you're more familiar with article prep than I am, Dr. Pingle, but
It's never fun.
yeah. So I'm pretty much ready there. There's just a couple of things that like I need to get some information for you so I can list you as my second author. I'll send you a message about that later.
Okay.
Next, I just got approved for getting my graduate teaching certificate. It's something that they offer here. It's no big deal, but basically as TAs here, we have to attend these all-day development sessions at the beginning of every year. And then if you attend 5 additional faculty development instructional sessions throughout the year, you can get this thing called a graduate teaching certificate, which basically says that you suffered and sat there through enough more lectures to say you actually made an effort. So I just got notification yesterday that I fulfilled my requirements, and so I'll be getting a little thing to throw in the resume or CV.
Cool.
So, and for those of you that don't know, great movie, Rodney Dangerfield, Back to School. Okay.
That was my introduction to Rodney Dangerfield.
So next one, I am prepping for my presentation at a conference. I'm going to be presenting at the Illinois Geographical Society next week. Actually, it starts next Friday, so I'll be there Friday through Sunday.
That's so soon. I didn't realize. Wow.
Huh?
I didn't realize that was coming up so fast. That's great.
Oh yeah. That's next week. So I get the 8 o'clock in the morning presentation on Saturday. So that's fun.
When I did my IGS presentation years and years ago, there were a lot more people there at 8 a.m. than I expected because it's kind of a one-track conference. So, yeah, or maybe a two-track conference.
Yeah, so all my paperwork is submitted and I'm approved and on the schedule. And by the way, the person who was reviewing the abstracts, because I listed you as a second co-author on it, he was like, "Oh, great! We're looking forward to hearing some more stuff from Tom Pingle." So, you know, they got your name in there.
Leaving Illinois, the IGS was one of my favorite parts about. You'll just the two, but IGS is it's a good little organization. I like those guys.
Yeah.
Say hi for me.
I definitely will. So yeah, and then I've only got a 15-minute presentation there and 5 minutes for questions. So I'm basically trying to cut my thesis presentation in half again. So that's fun. Next, what's going on? This week, I've been doing some other work. Basically, I've done a lot of flying in the last week. The first thing is there is a class on campus, class in the department called Community Geography class. And they are trying to work with locals to see how they perceive the local area. So I've been doing some flights to fill in the campus map model that Dr. Pingle and I were working on for a little while, for a couple of years ago. So I was flying some small patches that either were not in our original one or just new areas that they wanted flown for their class. So I've been trying to fill in between like Annie Glidden Road and over to Normal. We were missing that, and then north of our campus here. The second batch of flying I've been doing is I'm searching for features on the ground. There's things called ice-walled lake plains. They're a periglacial feature, something that happens during the glaciation era. And Dr. Conan, one of our department professors, and one of our former PhD students, Aubrey Dahlbeck, did a lot of work on these. And so I'm actually going out there and imaging the one that Aubrey did I think she did her master's and was working on her PhD for. So I'm trying to map that feature for them and I had a little bit of issues with it. So as you can see, there's a nice little gap there in the middle. This is actually 3 images together, 3 separate flights. I was basically testing the parameters of the drone since I'm only doing single up and down grids instead of the crosswise grid, back and forth, or double grid. I'm only doing single grids instead of double grids. I was actually pushing it to see how far I could fly. So I'm actually running, these up and down legs are almost 1 kilometer long. So actually getting quite a bit of land in there. So it's about, each one of those little legs is about 1 kilometer long and about 350 meters wide.
Wow.
So I can get basically a square kilometer now in 3 flights, which is not bad. And this is running my standard 80% overlap. So it's looking really good. Let's see, that's that one. And then the other one I'm doing is one of the other professors in the department, Dr. Lowe, has a remote sensing the environment class. And he wanted to image the Kishwaukee River that runs through the campus there. So that's actually through our campus. And do some images along there, about 128 images. And he wants to, with his class, he's testing the open source compositing software. The one he was working on in class is Drone Mapper. I don't know if you guys have tried that one before. I know Dr. Pingle and I have sort of tinkered around with it a little bit.
I like looked at it and like looked at its functionalities and stuff like that, but I've never implemented it.
Yeah. Well, we figured out some limitations for it. For the free version, you can only image 150 images at a time. So my whole river course, I had something like 600 images. So we were just sampling out basically enough to cover along the river itself. I did lose the bottom half because there was apparently some gaps along the bottom. So the 2 sections would not merge. And this one I actually did in Microsoft Image Compositor, Microsoft ICE. I know Dr. Pingle has done a bunch of imagery with that. And it's a fun, just down and dirty ortho mosaic creator. I just wanted to see if my images were properly aligned for his class. One thing we did find out about Drone Mapper is it will not work unless you have 80% overlap in your imagery. So we even called into the company and they're like, yeah, unless you have a good 80%, it's pretty much the open source stuff can be garbage. So yeah. Then I missed one. The other thing is I came across an article in one of our chat rooms that are one of the groups that we follow on Facebook. There's a project out there called NASA Globe Observer. It's using the IceSat-2. Basically, the IceSat-2 is a LiDAR satellite that's flying around. The original premise was to measure global ice caps, but since it's running a LiDAR constantly, they found they could do a lot of other cool things with it, like measure tree heights. So they are trying to have a crowdsourced, basically accuracy testing scenario going on. So they created an app that you can download on your phone, and they want people actually to go out and do basically bootstrapped hypsometry to measure trees to compare to their data set. I was trying to get out and do this. I haven't had a chance to yet, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my same subsample set that I used for my manual hypsometry, and I want using their app and see how those results compare to the results that I got through my thesis data. I think that's just a nice little addition that I can throw in there.
That's a conference presentation right there.
Yep.
Next year. Maybe you'll do it in the fall.
Yeah, but see, now I'm going to have to start paying full rates. No more student rates for me. All right, I think that's it for me today. So, my goals for the week were to graduate. I am on track with that. Get a job. That's sort of on hold. The personal research projects, I'm sort of stacking them. They keep building up. And journal prep, it's going along well. There's a few things I've got to tweak, but it seems to be going well. So like next week are pretty much the same. Just
All right.
going.
Yeah, let's talk over the next couple of days if you can find the time to talk journal prep. We can make a stuff. Well, we can talk and see how that's going.
Okay.
There might be things I can do to make that easier. As far as getting a job goes, don't put it off to the end.
No, but I can't hunt for anything outside the area right now, which has really been limiting me.
Yeah. Did you talk to Urban GIS yet?
Actually, I've not heard back from Courtney's husband yet. So that.
Talk to Urban GIS directly, I would say, or
right.
bug Courtney's husband. He's he's the kind of guy you need to bug.
Okay. Yeah.
You won't mind at all. He'll thank you for it.
All right.
Maybe people don't understand, like, there's a lot of stuff that can go by the wayside that, like, if you're busy, you don't really mean it to. So, like, if somebody's not doing something that you need, just, like, let them know.
Yeah.
For me.
All right. So I talked to Rob. Rob's internet died. He says he's going to zoom in via the phone. Here he is.
Proctoring, yeah. 11 to 12.
Hey, Rob.
No, 11 to 12 and 2 to 3. There's a class in there from.
Hello.
Hey, Rob. You're back.
Sorry about that. My internet just like flat out died. And it died in the middle of like a pause in one of your sentences. So I wasn't sure if it died or not. But yeah, my internet's like gone.
At least there's a phone app.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Oh, is my screen shared already?
No.
No. There we go. How about now?
There we go. Yep.
There we go. Yep.
Ready?
All right. Cool. Yeah, it's kind of update as far as research and stuff goes. It's 419, right? So I know I've been talking with Earl kind of just about the poetry setup, how it's all kind of working. So this link is a link to documentation between that. So it's basically you have to set up a local web server through XAMPP, and then once it's installed and all that, you can access it based off where you save it and install it. And that's basically where everything will get housed in regards to the backend data supply to the Canvas, the poetry measurement tool and all that. So, but then there's a separate component called Poetry Converter, which is downloadable from GitHub, and there's a link there. But it has a dependency on Laz tools. And yeah, so after you build it, it's basically just run the Poetry Converter executable file on a Laz data set, and then declare the output in the XAMPP folder, I believe so, and then give it a page name for the HTML doc. I've been viewing mine just straight HTML out of XAMPP and just viewing it that way, and that seems to be working. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, so graciously enough, we were able to get HTC Vive to the lab and the work coming up, so I was able to procure that through funding from the department. So it's been set up. I was able to view it kind of limitedly in a browser, an HTML page, just kind of navigating to my files and opening it in the Vive. So it's got limited functionality. It's got like point and click. So it's a little finicky, and because it's not particularly built to work that way. But yeah, I wasn't able to get any FPV capture. I wasn't in the most ideal environment. We were in a shared office space where I've got like 5 feet of like wiggle room, and there's the sensors like kind of moving at the same time because there's no room for it to be. So my hope is to kind of find a space this weekend, really crank it out and see what all I can get working and pulling in it. But yeah, it's super exciting. Kind of just working the back end stuff and all that. But yeah, so another class also doing some mixed reality work. I don't know why I didn't put it on there, but we are doing a drone flight simulator. So it's a comparison between typical drone flying with your typical RC remote controller versus gesture interaction with the HoloLens, being able to control throttle with like their defined gestures, and then the movement of the actual headset itself. So that was pretty cool. We got it streaming the feed from the Unreal Engine to the HoloLens. So I was up late last night doing that with crew members. So yeah, that was super exciting, and they're talking about like wanting to publish it and stuff like that. I was like, okay, a lot of work down the road too. So
Yeah.
But yeah, it was super exciting. HoloLens is really cool technology. But yeah, and then so yeah, started writing proposal. Slow and underway process though. Talking to Earl about it too, and even yeah, just being able to get eyes on it. People are looking at it. It's coming across as too thesis-y, not as much pointed details as I guess it should be. Yeah, but I'll be continuing with Dr. Pingel to keep narrowing that approach, make it concise and straight to the point, to fit framework for that. But yeah, so kind of a big thing that I thought of too was before I get to the Notre Dame thing, Notre Dame. So I also didn't mention this in here, but I went to, for work, I went to like a stormwater initiative field trip that they host for kids in the county.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of helping run stations there, and the county has a AR sandbox.
Okay.
So they were displaying that for the kids to play with and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was pretty cool. I took a picture of it. I don't know why I didn't include it, but it's really cool. And then they demonstrate drones. I don't know if they were using Pix4D, but they actually weren't able to come because the wind on one day was like crazy, like 30 miles an hour.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't going to fly it. But yeah, I guess they teach kids like, hey, you can create floodplain models with this and using drones. So I thought that was a really cool initiative. I never had that like growing up as a kid. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, I was even kind of inspired about what Earl was talking about last time with your disaster management and with the whole stuff with the news coming with Notre Dame. Yeah, I found videos that they were using drones to kind of be able to tell the extent of damage, like during and after the fact. I don't know if these will work, but yeah, this one here is a previous drone capture. I'll play a little bit of it if it works, but
We're on the laptop, so
yeah.
it should work a little better.
So yeah, this is all like previous imagery captured from it, which I imagine they might be able to use it to aid in reconstruction or
Yeah. Wow.
being able to do all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was really cool. I was like, I wonder how they availability to fly inside the church like that. But yeah, so I was just thinking about that and kind of how that might aid in reconstructing. But this was the kind of one that I stumbled upon, which was just the extent of the damage, where it was like the spire was here. So yeah, it was really kind of like crazy how this is post facto. And they had been using it for during the fire, to see the extent of the spread. But they mentioned that they only were using it for its camera purposes. So I imagine if you stuck a forward-looking infrared sensor on it, like that would prove to be like 10 times better even. But yeah, I feel like this implementation of drones in disaster response, like with the week that had, how big of a news this made would have been a good like launch point for drones to kind of be implemented more in disaster management. But yeah, so that's an interesting kind of just flight that they had. And me and my brother talk all the time about kind of bouncing business ideas off one another. Like one day we'll start a business, or we're like, oh, we'll start the disaster management response with drones and stick infrared sensors on it and call it Firefly. And I was like, that's $1 million idea right here. So, but yeah, that was about it. We'll kind of the approach for this weekend, next week, is to kind of iron out the proposal with Dr. Fingal and own personal work, and get that kind of up and running, get the most out of it. Time being, so.
My hope for the proposal stuff is to be able to get sort of like a library, as kind of the lab goes on over the years, with a library of like proposals and theses and stuff, so that it's easier. Models make these things so much easier. So I wish I had thought to send you Earl's proposal earlier. And Earl, when we did your proposal back in the day, you know, if you look back at like you had a 1-page proposal, and then I think I asked for like a 5-page proposal, but then that just like immediately turned into your whole 20-page proposal. But then that turned into your thesis. So like, but hopefully we can have these little pieces, so like, yeah, a 1-pager, a 3-pager, and like they can kind of,
you can flesh it out later.
Yeah, grow in pieces. But
yeah, it was definitely helpful to see Earl's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely made the production smoother, much smoother. Because instead of we starting from scratch each time, it was like you were saying, my 1-page, I built it into the 5-page, and that went to my proposal, and then my proposal basically became half of my thesis. So it was a really nice workflow.
Yeah.
A lot of stress out of it.
Getting pieces and plugging them in where they need to go and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that was it.
My parents were actually in Paris when the fire happened.
Really?
And they were on a bike tour, and I think they were like, a couple stops away, they were supposed to see it.
oh wow,
And then
That's
all of a
wild.
sudden they started seeing fire, and they're like, oh, what's going on? So then they like biked over, and it was on fire, and they're like, oh, that's too bad.
yeah.
They're like, we almost got to see it.
Yeah. So all the like the Instagram, social media things, like, oh, people are just showing us that they're in New York and they're using the fire as an excuse to show that they're on vacation. Like, fine, we get it. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, about the business idea, you know, that's not a bad thing. So I think, you know, and Earl, for you as well, I think the work that you did on your thesis, that's a small business right there. I don't really know what it takes to start a small business, but you actually have more.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like, that's why I'm doing all these little side projects, because I'm trying to build up a portfolio of different utilizations of this. So I could theoretically roll into my own business, because you know, Dr. Neal knows I've worked for myself for most of my life, so I'm really comfortable in that self-employed genre. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to get as many diverse little projects that I can put together to have that nice little little section. So we'll be the Midwest branch. You can be the Appalachia branch for us.
Sounds good.
Rob, did you have, you want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to over the week? Did you prepare slides or anything?
I didn't prepare any slides. I've just like more or less just went through ROS, just going through their tutorials, trying to understand some of their programming stuff. I also was able to get one of the WSLs, the Windows Subsystems for Linux, to work, and that's a surprisingly smooth thing. Like it's like you have to type in one command into like a PowerShell on the Windows, and then you download something from their Windows store, and it just works. Like it's 2 steps and it's done. And even graphical user interfaces that run on Linux can run on the WSL with like an X server running on them on the Windows machine.
Yeah, if you can do that, I'd be really interested because I haven't done that yet, and that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it works pretty much flawlessly. Like it. Yeah, I got it up and running. It was an interesting thing is one of my classes when I was an undergrad was computer graphics, and the software we were using was made by the professor, and it was using an X server thing, and it was giving us all kinds of problems because we were using Cygwin, and we had to do like running Cygwin or X server in a Cygwin thing, and it was a complete mess. I even talked to him about it, and he said like, yeah, that's a pain in the butt. Yeah. It's like the only simple way of doing it. But I was actually able to get that software working without changing anything. So it's smooth.
If you can, so on the GitHub wiki, if you can maybe make either a page or add on to I think I've got a page that's like running Linux on Windows. If you could edit that little wiki entry to talk about like how to get that up and running.
Yeah.
Or even if it's just like a reference to like here's a web page on how to get it running, but then the links and instructions are all kind of consolidated.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely add that.
So how's ROS going?
Fairly smoothly. I'm running through the tutorials and they mostly make sense. I mean, I'm more or less just chugging along through it. It's kind of like a lot, surprisingly. It's like, so it's kind of like its own development environment. Like it's like Visual Studio, yeah. but all command line. Like you have packages, projects, and you have to organize it all, and it's kind of nutty.
Yeah, that was Matt Mendez's experience with it. It got kind of quickly overwhelming. Like it's not an easy thing to get started on. So
yeah, I'm not overwhelmed yet, but it's
it's huge. Like you can see why people don't use it because I think it's really great once you get a handle on it, but it takes a long time to kind of really understand.
What's its like benefit of
why use it?
Yeah.
Well, its benefit to us is that it's got SLAM algorithms, it's got all kinds of things to take environmental data and turn it into like a point cloud. So that all of that stuff is done with like the best robotics algorithms out there. So none of that stuff has to be ported over. You just use the robotic stuff and then like it works for us. On top of that, it can do all kinds of like robot control. So like that's what it's really for. But we just care about the awareness part, right? Like robots need to build maps of their environment, and we just want those maps in real time or after the fact. So the cool thing is like we don't need to have a robot. We just need to like use the sensor output and then feed it into ROS, and then ROS can sort of do what it would do to make a map, and then we get it back.
It's also very modular with that, so you can either have like a sensor like pumping data into like a visualizing algorithm, or you can have a file and have that pump into the same algorithm. You can probably have them running both at the same time too if you really wanted to. So it's very, very modular.
Yeah, that part is cool. So the two pieces that I want to know how to use properly are the Velodyne scanners. So I gave you a page that had some sample data from a Velodyne scanner.
Yes.
So, and then that's one, and then the other one is
what kind of output is the Velodyne scanner?
It outputs what's called a PCAP file. I can show you these things. Okay. It's actually it outputs. It's pretty slick format. It outputs it all via this like network. Basically, spits it out over like Ethernet packets, and so it logs all the data is embedded in the payload like a TCP/IP packet, And then there's a little, there's a little rule book on how you get that back out. But because it's using technology that's not weird, like it's just piggybacking on existing stuff, it makes it really easy to kind of move it in and out. It was a clever idea of how to archive the data. This is the RealSense, Intel RealSense.
Okay, is that like a stereo camera?
Yeah, so it's basically like a miniaturized Kinect. And there's some new stuff actually that it works with the AR Sandbox, so that's one of the things I want to use it for. But it also spits out the data for this comes and gets stored as a bag file, which you probably know what that is by now, right?
I haven't looked too far into it, so not really.
All right. So when you at some point you're going to run across these things called bag files, like BAG, and they are basically collections of data that will go into ROS that can then be processed to turn into other stuff. So these things can record bag files. So what I want to do is be able to hook this up to a laptop, record a bag file of like walking down the hallway, and then ideally that bag file gets pumped into ROS either in real time or after the fact, and then we get a map of the building. Okay? So we can use these things for interior mapping without any other special software like paying licensing fees. Like the thing that drives me crazy is these things like YellowScan are essentially just using, my guess is they're using ROS like under the hood. And, like ROS is free. Like if we can just figure out how to use it, then we don't have to pay. And the price tag is steep. It's like $80,000 is what they're like.
Oh, man.
Like it's like, I don't want to pay that. Like and black box it. Like I want to be able to just put it on the laptop, So I appreciate everything you're doing, Rob. That's good to hear. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help.
Okay. I mean, I just need to run through it more or less, just get some of the stuff. So I tried to look up what like how to convert PCAP files and stuff like that, and I kind of got overwhelmed with that. So I'm like, I'll like do the simpler tutorials and stuff like that first, and then
just kind of go through the normal stuff, and then at some point we can, once you feel like you kind of understand how ROS works, then we can kind of get together and see if we can. Okay. I know, I've gone through it, and I've converted a PCAP file with ROS. This was about 2.5 years ago, and since that time I've forgotten most of what I learned.
And it probably changed since then too. So
yeah. So cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I know we're kind of out of time. Anything else from anybody? All right. That's it. Thanks everybody. See ya.
See ya.